Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Saturday, July 9th, our final edition of the state previews for Fargo, and we get Team Tennessee. Apologies for Team Tennessee being last, but it's just somebody's going to have to be last, and that's just the way it worked out. I wanted to make sure that I touch on a couple things as we begin this. I've learned a few things as I've been releasing them, and I want to make sure that I communicate that, first and foremost, this is not a prediction. I don't make predictions. I don't. If you can predict who is going to win or make the podium in these deep weight classes, at Fargo and everything else, you have a lot better skills than I do. So I'm simply going to hopefully highlight some past history, give some context, and then highlight some kids who I think have a pretty good shot from the Southeast, and specifically in this one from Team Tennessee to make a run and make the podium. So that said, let's jump to the schedule for this week. And honestly, this has been the schedule. We've released a bunch, so if you missed some and you were interested in going back and seeing Team Alabama or Team Florida, North Carolina, you can go to the YouTube page and check it out. But the one thing I want to highlight on this is that next week, and I've already been working really hard to try to gather all the information about what we can expect who we can expect to see in each of these divisions. Monday will be the 16U women, Tuesday the 16U men, and we kind of go in order based upon when they wrestle. So again, that's not a prediction, but it is a highlight based upon the rosters that have been released to Team USA or to USA Wrestling about who we might see in each of the weight classes. And, just as a fan of the sport and trying to understand kind of who some matchups we might see and that sort of thing, it's always interesting to take a peek. That said, doesn't mean that that's where these kids are going to be necessarily. I've already talked to a few people. Weights have changed. Kids have gone up, gotten bigger. Kids have gotten smaller, even from the rosters that have been released by USA Wrestling. So nothing's set in stone, but it will give us a pretty good idea of what we might expect to see in about a week from now. Yeah. All right. So speaking of which, a week from today, we kick off the 16U women in the morning on Saturday, July 16th. The 16U freestyle men kick off that afternoon. And as you can see from here, and if you're not aware of kind of the way Fargo works, is basically we have 7 days and 6 tournaments of just nonstop wrestling action. So those 2 tournaments start on Saturday, July 16th, and then the 16U women, they have their medal matches on Sunday, July 17th in the afternoon. And if you look down this list, you'll see every single afternoon at about 1:30, 2 o'clock is when we get to see our medal matches. So they will grind their way through, getting to the top 8, and then we'll wrestle those medal matches at that point in time. The junior freestyle men will kick off Sunday morning, and then that evening after and I say evening, it's really more like 4:30 or so. Once the medal matches are done, the 16U men come back. They have their quarters and their semis, and the Conti matches, getting to those medal matches, and the junior freestyle men will continue on in their tournament because their brackets are huge, and we'll get to that in just a second. All right, so one of the questions that I always get asked is, why Fargo? Why pay as much attention to Fargo? Why do we pay that much attention to Fargo? And I think that first and foremost, it's important to note that like all the other tournaments, whether it's AAUs or whether it's with this organization or that organization or whatever, USA Wrestling is kind of the governing body for our Olympic movement. And we wrestle freestyle and Greco. It is the national championship. Fargo has now been around for, I think, 51 years. It wasn't always in Fargo. It wasn't always known as Fargo. But it's been around for quite a long time. At least the junior men have been around for that long. I don't think that the cadet men 16U, I still think of them as cadets. And the women obviously haven't been around quite as long as that. But you get the idea. It's the tournament that's been around for quite a long time. And in relationship to wrestling in college, and I totally understand, not everyone goes to wrestling college. Not everybody wants to compete in college, okay? But there are a lot of you that compete and wrestle in high school and want to get to that next stage. Well, then there is no better platform to showcase your skills than Fargo. There are Division I coaches for both men and women, top coaches from all over the place walking around, especially the junior freestyle men's days that they're wrestling. They're paying a lot of attention to what's happening on the mats. And as you can see from this graphic, 79% of Division I place winners since 2006 competed in Fargo, whether that was at 16U or in juniors for the men, and 78.2% have of the champions, Division I champions, placed at Fargo in either 16Us or at juniors. And the same thing holds true for the women. We have less data for a long period of time, but what we see is, look, the best go out to this national championship and they compete with one another. Maybe not every single year, but the brackets are they're big and they're stacked with a lot of quality competition. And before I get to further on, I want to make sure that I highlight, this is the data that I'm pulling, or a lot of the information I'm pulling is taken from Jason Bryant's Fargo Almanac. It's actually fargoalmanac.com. If you're interested in purchasing the Almanac, it is 194 pages of a ton of information. And so make sure you check it out if you get an opportunity. A lot of interesting information in there. So let's jump over to the numbers. And as you can see from this graphic, we've got Greco, 16U and juniors, freestyle, 16U and juniors, women, 16U and juniors, and then off to the side, it's 2021, 2019, 2018, and these are the numbers that we have for those years, the number that competed. And basically, what I'm trying to do with this graphic is just to illustrate this average size of each bracket. So in the juniors, think that there are 15 brackets, because there's a 100-pound bracket in junior freestyle, in juniors as a whole, but junior freestyle. And if you look at 2021, there were 1,585 wrestlers that competed in junior freestyle. That means that the average bracket in 2021 was 106 wrestlers. Now, if you're a smaller weight class, probably it was a little bit less. If you're in that middle group, 132, 138, 145, 152, you probably have more than 106 in your bracket. So the sheer number of competitors trying to make the top 8 is outstanding. We'll get to talking about the quality of the competition in a couple of days, and I think you'll have an appreciation for how tough the bracket is to get through. All right, so now that we've gotten through that intro that I've done now repeatedly, let's jump to why you're here, and that is Team Tennessee. And let's start with Team Tennessee's 16U women. And one of the things that I was completely surprised about, and actually, before I get to 16U women and Team Tennessee, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Team Tennessee as a whole. I mean, Coach Mike Hatcher, I don't know if it's his leadership, Shane Chittum, or, there's so many people involved up in Tennessee. And I will say they have had one really, really good season so far. And I fully expect Fargo will be just a continuation of that. It started with Southeast Regionals, where they wrestled exceptionally well. Their junior duels team, their cadet duels team, both wrestled exceptionally well. So I think that that's something that you should pay attention to, and we should all pay attention to, that we should kind of, go ahead and tip our cap and tip our cap and say, hey, they've done a fantastic job, and I expect that we'll see a continuation of that in about a week's time. All right, so the 16U women. Now, what I was getting ready to start with was I'm completely surprised. Tennessee is one of the 5 original states to sanction high school girls wrestling. Yet, last year was the first time they had a 16U All-American. I had no idea. I didn't know. And they had 2. Maggie Graham, who took 3rd, and Genesis Gilmore, who took 2nd, made it to the finals, I think, at 152. So fantastic for them to break through and push through to get to the podium, the first 2 ever for the state of Tennessee, and it happens in 2021, which that seems crazy to me. I don't know if the reason for that is that the women have not as focused as much on the freestyle aspect of it. I know high school, there's a lot of women's programs and things like that. So that might be something to look into in the future. Here are our 6 wrestlers, 16U women, who are on the roster I got from USA Wrestling and from Team Tennessee. It was a few days ago. It might have changed a little bit. Probably not. And honestly, without naming everybody's name, and I'm just not going to be able to do so, the one name that stands out is Piper Fowler. I mean, honestly, Piper is ranked top 5 in her weight. I think it's 152, 164. She's one of the top, not only 16U women, she is one of the top 152, 164s, regardless of 16Us or juniors. So fully expect Piper Fowler to make a run to the podium and add to the All-American total for the 16U women this year. All right, let's go over to the 16U men. Those cadets, and yes, I still think of them as cadets, had a really good run in at cadet duels. And I'm pulling up Jason Bryant's almanac right now so that I can just take a peek at making sure I don't make a mistake, because I did make a mistake with Team Georgia, and I apologize to Michael Killick, R.J. Weston, and Vincent Baker, because I was reading one part of the almanac and it had not been updated, and I wanted to make sure that I read a different part to make sure I don't make a mistake. So anyway, 24 freestyle All-Americans for 16U men in Tennessee, 14 Greco All-Americans. What do we see? Who do we see on that list? Nicholas Boykin, last champion, both at freestyle and in Greco back in 2015. And for those of you, I guess, not paying attention, which I would be very surprised about, a shout out to Nicholas Boykin again for making the world team at U23s. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but I know Nicholas again will be competing later this summer, looking and chasing a world title. So shout out to him. I know he was out helping Team Ohio's Greco a little bit. I saw that on Twitter. So anyway, Team Tennessee hasn't had an All-American in either freestyle or Greco, according to the Almanac, since 2015 in 16 years. So 2019, I said 2019, not 2016. If I said 2016, my apologies. 2019. So it's been a few years, but I think that changes this year. So let's go ahead and flip over to the roster. And this is our roster of our 16U men that are getting ready to make a run for the podium. And there are a ton of names on this list. I think that Tennessee has, 5, 6 that really have a legit shot to make the podium. Again, basing upon past experience in Fargo or their 16U duels. And I'm going to go ahead and throw out Max Norman's name. Max, I think, was unbeaten both in freestyle and in Greco at 16U duels. Looked fantastic and is certainly got to be amongst the favorites to not only make the podium but be right in there for the top step, for the big stop sign. Two other names that kind of three other names that really pop out are Cooper Hilton, Case and Rourke, and Hunter Sturgill. And the reason I say Hunter Sturgill and Case and Rourke is they both were in Fargo a year ago in 16Us. Both made runs too, but did not quite get onto the podium. I think that probably changes this year. And Cooper Hilton, I believe he was a world team member for maybe 15 Us last year. So definitely another one to watch. Look, I mean, there's a lot of names on here. Jose Cordero, down at 88 pounds, is going to be in the hunt. Landon DeSalle, Carson Duple, William Phillips, Jarvis Little. Again, I could go on and on and on with lots of different names. Tennessee's 16U men have a real shot to put up a lot of put a lot of them onto the podium. Now, making that happen, that's a whole other story. But certainly they come in with some high expectations. All right, so let's jump over to the junior women. And again, this is where I'm a little surprised, right? Because our 16U women and our junior women, based upon the history of women's wrestling in Tennessee, you would expect to see more than 3 names that have made the podium. Now, I will say the sheer number that Tennessee is bringing this year for junior women compared to previous years is huge. So it looks like we're trending in the right direction. The question is, junior women's super deep. I wonder if we're going to be able to add to the total that we have in front of us. So as you can see, Emily Gessler was 8th in 2010. Sharnia Wells was 5th in 2017. And Emma Walker was the last All-American for Team Tennessee, 4th in 2019. So it's been a few years. Who gives us the best shot? Who has the best shot of climbing on the podium for Team Tennessee for the junior women? My opinion, right? Well, first and foremost, I've already made mention. This is the list of the roster. I've already made mention of Piper Fowler, top 5, both at juniors and 16U. She's got to be right there at the top of the list to do so at juniors as well. So she is definitely somebody who can add to that list. 2 other names that are right here on this list, both were All-Americans a year ago at 16U, and that's Genesis Gilmore and Maggie Graham. Both should be in the hunt again, this time in juniors, to make the podium, and we'll watch them make a run. It would be awesome to see Tennessee double up their number of All-Americans, and with those 3, they certainly have an opportunity. And they're not the only 3. I mean, honestly, you got Ella Murphy down at the bottom. You've got Jenna Baines. You've got Elalina Gonzalez, Riley Bennett. You've got a lot of different names in there where they have a legit shot to make a run as well. But the 3 that kind of stand out the most, based upon past experience and everything else, is got to be Genesis Gilmore, Maggie Graham, and Piper Fowler. So, all right, let's jump to the junior men, and look a little bit at the history of junior men. 15 freestyle All-Americans, 7 Greco All-Americans, including the champ last year. Shout out to Dane Dalrymple. Dane made a run to the top step a year ago. It's fantastic to watch him take home the big stop sign from Fargo and for Team Tennessee. There were 2 Greco All-Americans a year ago. Obviously, Dane was one of them. Ashton Davis was the other. And there were 2 on the freestyle side of things, Cooper Flynn and Hunter Mason. So, it's good to see. The last champion, according to the Almanac, and let me just double check this. Last champ was Elijah Oliver in 2013. So it's been a minute since Tennessee has had a freestyle junior champion, but they certainly have someone that can make a run for it this year. And let's go ahead and flip over to the roster. And the name that probably should stand out the most is on the bottom left, and that is Cody Chittum. Cody is number 1, number 2 at 152 in the country. He's fantastic. Honestly, he's been wrestling lots of different places, and has to be amongst the top contenders coming in this weekend. Now, I say that because juniors is super tough. It's super deep. Make sure you tune in next Thursday and take a look at the number of competitors and their accolades at 152 and at some of these other weights, because they are certainly it certainly won't be an easy task to take home the title. But I would think that Cody would be one of the favorites heading into the tournament. Who else should we watch from Team Tennessee? Well, honestly, there's quite a few names on this list that really can make a run. Again, I don't want to list everybody's name. I know Kodiak Kennedy was there a year ago. I think he was 5-2 before he was eliminated on the backside. Came close to make the podium, but did not make the podium. You see Colin Duple, who had a really, really good junior duels. Another individual that you should keep an eye on. Luke Belcher, Logan Fowler, Bentley Ellison, Noah Todd. I mean, again, I could go on and on. Adrian Bernot. There's Justin Bradford. There's a number of different individuals that really have a shot to make the podium or make a run to make the podium. But, and again, I don't want to overstate this, but junior men freestyle, specifically freestyle, but Greco as well, is super, super deep. You're going to have to beat former All-Americans to make that podium. So it'll be really interesting to watch each of these individuals get ready to make a run next week, next Saturday. Well, actually, junior men don't start till Sunday. So next Sunday is when they'll kick things off. Anyway, I appreciate all of you tuning in for any of these videos. Remember, the whole point of doing them is to highlight each of the teams, each of the 6 states that we cover in the Southeast, as they prepare to go to Fargo. It's a great opportunity to really kind of put your name out there, get on the radar screen of some college coaches and things along those lines. Plus, it's a fantastic tournament. It's just a lot of fun to watch. 28, 30 mats going on. It is just a lot of fun, a lot of wrestling all over the place. And I hope you guys tune in and check it out as you're watching Team Tennessee and them try to add to their All-American totals. Thank you for tuning in, and best of luck to Team Tennessee. I hope you guys do great. See ya.